So what we're going to be looking at today is the first part of what I think will become a substantial series, in fact, and we're going to be talking about playing over changes. And for a lot of people that's quite a difficult concept to understand. It certainly was for me as a youngster, because I'd got used to playing over stuff and that was it. I didn't really understand what playing over a change meant. So I'm going to take this opportunity now to see if we can start getting that line of thinking going. So I think if we understand that, we've got a good grasp of it, then that's a great platform to go forward on. It's nice to be standing on solid ground, as I'm always saying, just make sure you know about the stuff you need to know about. Don't know a bit about lots of things which you don't quite understand, so that's no use to you. So, okay, I think the first thing to say then is, we have a sequence where somebody's playing. Then what you're going to play over that is, in a manner of speaking, it's static. And what I mean by that is you're playing something bluesy. So really, okay, it's in that particular example, it's really more of a genre, because I'm playing a mixture of a couple of things there. But basically I'm thinking, as soon as it starts, I'm thinking that's bluesy, it's in G, I'm going to do my thing, and off I go. I could take another example. Let's say we had something like this. Now again there, these chords are what I'm going to describe as being diatonic. Now that's another subject which we'll go into. In fact, one of the things you realise very quickly as a teacher of guitar, that to explain one thing, you have to dip into the surrounding stuff, because there's no two things in music which aren't linked, really. I mean, even Meatloaf and Pavarotti have quite a lot in common. Let's take a little moment there then. So, diatonic, what does that mean? Well, it really means playing chords that belong to a key, and that's something, as I said, I will be investigating in a lot of detail before we get on to alternative diatonics, which is another fun subject. This is in the key of G, this is in the key of G. So basically it's using notes from a G scale. Now because it's got a kind of a laid back sort of groove to it, there's a very slightly bluesy tendency to it. So if I'm playing this, and so on and so forth. That's quite fun playing over that sequence, but anyway. In those situations, we can say to ourselves, well, okay, it's a bluesy, in the second example, kind of cool, laid back sort of G, so we can be quite comfortable just to sit in that scale, get into the feel of it, and try and get what we can out of it. So, okay. Now, playing over changes is where the harmonies and the demands of that chord sequence change. That sounds obvious when you say it like that, but what I'm getting at is this. Let's suppose I play this. Okay. Now this is what you might call a fairly black and white sound. It's kind of good if you're doing a rerun or a remake of Back to the Future. You can play Earth Angel using this chord, and so on. It's very 1950s sort of sound, actually. So if you're playing over that, what you're going to play is going to be very black and white. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. If black and white is fine. If you like black and white, that's great. So okay. So the next question is, well, what happens in jazz? Well, in jazz what happens is you get a lot of embellishments on the chords. So our C becomes, let's say, a C major 7. Our A minor becomes a major chord and a sharp 5. Now, don't worry about the ins and outs of the names too much because it's the principle. So we've got C major 7, A7 sharp 5, D minor 11, and what do we have here? Oh, we have a G7, I'll tell you a lot, we have a G13 with a flat 9. Okay, so big names here. Becomes... of this is that it's supposed to elicit movement in a chord sequence. The problem with it is that it can often sound very unmelodic and to be honest, not that pleasant to the ear. So whilst I was, as a youngster, fascinated by some of those sounds, I was rather turned off by discordant stuff. So I still wanted to investigate and find out what was going on. So if I was playing over this, then instead of this, I'd play something more like this. So that's what you tend to get when you embellish the chords and you have these big lines happening. Now, I thought somewhere in between the black and white sort of view of things and the out and out jazz, what you might call hardcore of harmony, if you like, there's got to be something in the middle which is interesting without being discordant, and that is really what I want to talk about as we go forward, playing over changes. We're not trying to play jazz. What we're trying to say is what we've got, that's a little bit bland, that side. This is kind of maybe like a plate of pasta with 3 cubic meters of salt poured on it, and there's got to be somewhere in between those two where we can play something which is interesting but retains its beauty, if you will. So that's what we're going to be doing. This, as I say, is really just an introduction to that concept. So playing when you don't have changes, you can pretty much drop anchor, if you will, in a particular scale that you think is relevant at the time. Playing over changes, you have to alter what you're playing to fit those chords as they come along. So that's it for the moment. Please hit the subscribe button if you could. In part 2, we're going to start taking some examples, and if you're worried about any of those big sounding chords and changes, we're not going to be worrying about that. Okay, that's by and large irrelevant at this stage, although it does give us an idea of what the source material is for the thinking, and that's very important. You need to know why somebody's doing something. It's no good for me just to sit here going, yes, well, I play guitar for a long time, so you have to listen to me. It's important to justify what you're doing, and I'm hoping that's done that. Anyway, as I say, if you could hit the subscribe button, and I'll speak to you in the next video. So thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.